Your eyes snap open, no alarm, just a strange stillness pressing on your chest. Something feels off. The room is silent, but your heart is already racing. Thoughts rush in before you can even sit up. What time is it? Did you sleep through something important? Is today going to be another one of those days? Rushed, reactive, foggy. You reach for your phone instinctively, your fingers brushing across the screen before you even think. And there it is, the flood. Notifications, headlines, missed calls, social media updates, emails screaming for attention. In less than 30 seconds, your brain has been hijacked. The world has barged into your mind uninvited. You haven't even taken your first deep breath of the day, and already your emotions are being tugged in 5 different directions. That's how most people begin. Every morning they surrender, not because they want to, but because they haven't made a conscious decision not to. And from that very first act, the tone is set. You think it's harmless, that a quick scroll doesn't matter, but that first moment determines whether you're in charge or whether the world is. And once you give up that control, you start living in response mode. You're no longer deciding, you're reacting. One message irritates you. One post makes you feel inferior. One email overwhelms you. And now, before the day even begins, you're emotionally scattered, mentally drained, and spiritually disconnected. But what if that first moment could be different? What if, instead of reaching for your phone, you reached for your breath? What if the first thing you fed your mind was not noise, but silence? There's a power in stillness that most people never experience because they've trained themselves to avoid it. Silence scares them. Slowing down makes them feel unproductive. But that's where mastery begins, in those quiet, uncomfortable minutes when you're alone with your thoughts and forced to decide what kind of energy you'll carry into your day. It starts with a pause. Just a small one. Sit up, close your eyes again. Not to go back to sleep, but to center yourself, feel your body, listen to your breath, you're alive, and before you let the outside world dictate your internal state, you remind yourself, you are in control here. This moment right now is yours. You are not just waking up. You are taking back ownership of your mind, and that's the first true act of emotional mastery. The calm you're chasing all day doesn't begin when the chaos ends. It begins now, right here, in your bedroom, in your body. The mind is a battlefield, and most people lose the war before they even put their feet on the floor. But you won't be most people, not today. Today, you win the morning because you've decided to, and that decision, repeated day after day, becomes a habit, and that habit becomes a pattern, and that pattern builds the kind of emotional stability that no outside force can shake. There's something sacred about mornings, not because of the sun or the routine, but because it's your one chance every day to reset. Every morning is a blank canvas. You decide what colors to paint with. Will it be frustration? Will it be stress? Or will it be focus, gratitude, intention? Most people don't choose. They let the brush fall into the hands of circumstances, of other people's agendas, of bad habits formed years ago. And then they wonder why their life feels like a mess of lines with no pattern. You have to train yourself to care about that first hour, not as an obligation, but as a gift, because how you begin determines how you continue. When you give yourself time to be still, to reflect, to set a tone, everything else bends to that energy. The noise of the world still exists, yes, but it doesn't invade you the same way, because you've built a wall around your focus. You've planted your roots deep enough to stand tall, even when storms try to shake you. Imagine waking up and instead of rushing, you breathe. Instead of checking messages, you write down one thing you're grateful for. Instead of diving into to-do lists, you ask yourself, who do I want to be today? That small act, intentional reflection, starts rewiring your brain. You stop being reactive. You start responding with clarity, with calm, with purpose, and the world feels different, not because it's changed, but because you have. People think they need dramatic transformations to change their emotional state. They wait for vacations, retreats, New Year's. But emotional mastery doesn't require a life overhaul. It requires consistent daily choices, especially in the beginning of the day. That's when your brain is most vulnerable, most programmable. What you feed it in those moments determines what it feeds you for the rest of the day. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you feed it silence, direction, intention, then that's what it gives you back. In your conversations, in your work, in how you handle pressure. You can't control what happens at noon, or what your boss will say, or how traffic will behave, but you can control the first 30 minutes. You can decide whether your morning is powered by your values or stolen by someone else's drama, and that's not just habit. That's self-respect. Because when you treat your emotional space like it matters, you begin to live like your peace is priceless. So tomorrow, when you open your eyes, pause. Don't grab the phone. Don't rush. Don't react. Sit in the stillness. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Listen to your breath. Own that space. Remind yourself that this moment is not trivial. It's training. You are training your mind to obey your command. You are building emotional muscle when the world expects you to be weak. And with every repetition of that stillness, you become someone different, someone grounded, someone clear, someone powerful. That's how you begin to master your emotions. Not by running from the world, but by meeting the world each day from a place of control. And it all starts the moment you wake up. That first breath, that first thought, that first decision, because those moments are not just how your day begins. They're how your life transforms. You're walking through your day, and everything seems fine, until suddenly it's not. A single word from someone cuts deeper than it should. A message you weren't expecting derails your whole train of thought. The pressure begins to build not from outside, but from somewhere deep inside your chest. Your breath gets shorter, your jaw tightens, your fists might even clench just a little. And before you know it, you've reacted. You snapped at someone, you shut down emotionally, you panicked, and all it took was one trigger. That's how it works. Emotions don't announce themselves with a warning sign. They ambush you, hijack your calm, and leave you wondering how something so small had so much power. The truth is, it wasn't the trigger. It was the space between the trigger and your reaction. That space was empty, and in that emptiness there was no control. That space is everything, and yet it's the most ignored part of the human experience. You see, you don't need to eliminate stress to stay calm. You don't need to live in a bubble where no one tests your patience. You need to learn how to use the space, the moment between impulse and response. That split second pause that changes everything. That's the micro moment where emotion either takes the driver's seat or you do. Most people never learn how to live inside that space. They jump from trigger to reaction without realizing there was ever a choice. But that choice is where emotional mastery is born. Imagine someone says something rude to you. Your natural instinct might be to defend yourself, to hit back, to match their energy. But what if instead you took one slow breath? What if you trained yourself to recognize that tension and step back mentally, even if it's just for 2 seconds? That breath is not weakness. That breath is a weapon. Because inside that breath, you regain control. Inside that breath, you ask yourself, do I really want to go where this emotion is dragging me? And more often than not, the answer is no. The ability to pause is not natural. It's trained, and like any other training, it feels awkward at first. You'll forget, you'll mess it up, you'll react too quickly, then regret it. But that's part of the process. The point is not perfection. The point is awareness, because the moment you realize you can pause even once, something shifts in your mind. You realize that emotions are not dictators. They are messengers, and you don't have to obey every message. Emotions are loud, they scream, they demand, but the most powerful people aren't the ones who silence their emotions. They are the ones who listen, then decide. There's a difference between feeling anger and becoming it, between feeling fear and collapsing under it. That difference is the pause, that sacred space where you see the emotion rising, and instead of drowning, you observe. You breathe, you wait, you decide. Life is a series of these small emotional tests. Someone's tone, a delay, a disappointment, an unexpected challenge. These are your training grounds, And if you can begin to use these everyday moments as practice, you will grow stronger than you realize. Don't wait for a crisis to test your calm. Practice in the minor frustrations. Practice when your coffee order is wrong, when someone interrupts you, when traffic moves slower than you want. These are your micro moments. And each one is a chance to reclaim power. You don't need an hour in silence. You need a second of intention, one breath in and out. That's all it takes to disrupt the default pattern of reaction. That breath reminds your body you are safe. That breath tells your mind you are not in danger. And once you start building this habit, you'll find that your entire energy shifts. You begin to walk through the world with more awareness, more control, and less fear. People will still be rude. Life will still be unpredictable, but you will respond differently, and that's the difference that changes everything. Because when you change your response, you change your outcome. You stop feeding the cycle of stress and reaction. You start creating a life rooted in clarity, in strength, in peace. The power of micro moments is that they're always available. You don't need a perfect environment to use them. You could be in a meeting, in a fight, on a deadline, anywhere, and still the breath is yours, the pause is yours. No one can take it from you, but you have to remember it, you have to choose it, because in the heat of emotion, your instinct will scream, act now. But the voice of mastery whispers, wait, breathe, choose. Over time, this habit rewires your brain. You become less reactive. Your nervous system calms faster. Your relationships shift. People notice you're harder to shake. Not because you don't feel, but because you don't collapse. You become emotionally solid, grounded. Someone others turn to not because you're loud, but because you're stable. That stability comes from your commitment to the pause, to the breath, to mastering the moment before the moment takes over. This isn't about suppressing how you feel. It's about understanding it. It's about knowing that every emotion has a message, but not every emotion deserves a microphone. When you pause, you let the emotion speak without letting it scream. You get the wisdom without the chaos. You take the lesson and leave the destruction behind. And what's even more powerful, when you practice these micro pauses, the people around you feel it. Your kids, your partner, your coworkers, they see your calm and begin to mirror it, because emotions are contagious, and just like chaos spreads, so does peace. You become a thermostat, not a thermometer. You set the emotional tone instead of reacting to everyone else's. That is real influence. That is real strength. The truth is, most people don't need more time or more motivation. They need more space. Space to think, space to feel, space to decide, and that space lives in the pause, in the breath, in the micro moments that everyone ignores but you learn to treasure. That's where emotional freedom lives. Not in big breakthroughs, but in small, silent choices made over and over again. So the next time you feel triggered, don't ask, how do I stop feeling this? Ask instead, can I pause right now? One breath. 1 second, one decision. That's where it all changes. Not in the noise, but in the silence that follows. If you're brave enough to enter it, that's where you find your calm. That's where you take back your power. You carry more than you realize. Not in your hands or on your back, but deep inside. Emotions that were never expressed, pain that was never processed, words that were never spoken. It piles up slowly, quietly. A single moment of embarrassment you brushed off but never forgot. A small betrayal that you told yourself didn't matter but still lingers in your chest. A disappointment you tried to laugh through even though it stung more than you let on. Day by day, the emotional weight builds. You learn to carry it like it's normal. You smile with it, work with it, live with it, and yet, without realizing it, it dulls your focus, clouds your peace, and drains your energy. It's like dragging an invisible suitcase through every moment of your life, filled with things you never meant to hold on to. Most people don't notice the weight until it becomes unbearable. They think they're just tired, just overwhelmed, just stressed. But often, what they're really feeling is the buildup of unresolved emotion, the emotional dust that settles in your mind and heart when you don't take the time to clean it out. Just like you wouldn't go days without showering or months without cleaning your home, your inner world needs the same attention. It needs maintenance, a daily check-in, a moment to breathe, reflect, and release. Emotional hygiene is just as important as physical hygiene, but it's ignored because it's not visible. Until it is, you lash out at someone over something small and wonder where it came from. You break down in tears and can't explain why. You feel numb in moments where you should feel joy. That's the cost of emotional bill. Dup. Your system starts shutting down under the pressure. You become reactive, cold, or disconnected, not because you're broken, but because you're full. There's no space left inside, no room for new feelings because the old ones never got processed. And the truth is, it doesn't take a traumatic event to fill you up. It happens through ordinary moments. Small wounds, repeated stress, quiet disappointments, they add up, and if you don't release them, they begin to shape the way you experience life. Letting go isn't something you do once. It's something you do daily. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Every day you pick up small emotional fragments, and every day you need to put them down. But most people are taught to tough it out, to keep moving, to ignore, to minimize. That may work for a while, but eventually the weight demands your attention. And when it does, it never asks politely. It erupts in anxiety, in anger, in confusion, in decisions you regret. In moments where you look in the mirror and don't recognize who you've become. That's why you have to build the habit of emotional release. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to cry for hours or talk through every detail of your life. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down in silence and asking yourself, what am I holding on to today? Sometimes it's writing one sentence in a journal, walking without music, or talking to someone who sees through your mask. Other times, it's admitting that something hurt you more than you said it did, that you're scared when you pretend to be fine, that you're exhausted from pretending to be strong all the time. Letting go is not the same as forgetting. It doesn't mean the pain didn't matter. It means you refuse to let it own you. It means you give yourself permission to move forward without carrying everything from your past like a badge of survival. You survived, yes, but now it's time to live, and you can't fully live if you're emotionally overloaded. You can't be present if part of you is always stuck in what you didn't release yesterday. That's why you must check in with yourself. Daily, you have to notice the tension in your body, the tightness in your chest, the weight behind your eyes. These are signals, clues, invitations to release what you've buried. Most people don't listen. They get headaches, back pain, sleepless nights, and they treat the symptoms instead of the source. But if you stop and listen, if you ask yourself what you're still carrying, you'll often find that the pain is not just physical. It's emotional. It's something you need to feel so you can let it go. There's no perfect way to do this, no rule book. Sometimes letting go looks like laughing until you cry. Sometimes it's crying until you feel light again. Sometimes it's forgiving someone who will never apologize, or forgiving yourself for the things you said when you were in survival mode. Emotional release is messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. But it's necessary, it's healing, and the more you practice it, the lighter you become. The clearer you think, the calmer you feel, not because life got easier, but because you stopped carrying everything alone. You have to remember, emotions are not meant to stay. They're meant to move, to pass through you. When you resist them, they get stuck. When you feel them fully, they move on. Sadness isn't dangerous. Anger isn't bad. Fear isn't weakness. They're all messages. And once you've heard the message, you're free to let it go. But you can't get the message if you keep silencing the emotion. You have to listen. With patience, with honesty, with compassion. Only then can you release it fully. Make it a habit, just like brushing your teeth. Every night before you sleep, take 10 minutes to reflect. What happened today? What did I feel? What am I holding on to that I don't need to take into tomorrow? And then let it go, write it, say it, breathe it out. Don't let it stay in your system. Don't let it harden into bitterness, resentment, or numbness. That's how people lose themselves. Slowly, silently, and without realizing it. You don't have to carry everything. You were never meant to. You're allowed to release, to feel and let go, to be strong and soft at the same time. That's the real mastery, not in controlling every emotion, but in allowing every emotion to flow through you without staying stuck. You don't have to wait for a breakdown to do this. You don't have to hit rock bottom. You can start now, with a breath, with a moment of stillness, with a decision to be lighter than you were yesterday. Because the truth is, peace isn't something you find. It's something you uncover. It's already there, under the weight of everything you've carried for too long. And once you learn to release daily, not eventually, you'll find that peace was never far. It was always waiting, just beneath the surface, just beneath the noise, right there inside you. There's a moment, quiet and subtle, when your mind starts to drift. It's not dramatic, it doesn't announce itself with a siren, but slowly, quietly, your thoughts begin to scatter. One distraction turns into five, a notification pulls your attention, a random worry hijacks your focus. You go to check something small and 30 minutes disappear. You don't even know how it happened, but your mind is no longer yours. It's chasing shadows, jumping between worries, regrets, plans, and noise. And the worst part, you think that's normal. You've become used to the chaos. You've accepted the noise as a part of life. But that noise is what's stealing your presence, your clarity, and your ability to truly live. The ability to stay calm and focused isn't some mystical talent reserved for monks and meditation gurus. It's a daily discipline, a moment-by-moment choice. In a world screaming for your attention, your power lies in your ability to direct it. Not just to what matters, but to what matters now. That's the secret. Not just prioritizing goals, but prioritizing presence. Because most people live distracted lives, not because they don't care, but because they've never learned how to guard their attention. They let it drift like a leaf in the wind, pulled by whatever gust blows next, and then they wonder why they feel anxious, why they feel behind, why they can't finish anything without feeling burned out. It's not a motivation problem, it's a focus problem. Your mind is like a lens. What you point it at becomes your experience. If you let it point at fear, you feel fear. If you let it point at doubt, you feel small. If you train it to point at the moment you're in, this breath, this task, this feeling, you begin to regain your power. That's what presence is. It's the refusal to time, travel into the future or the past. It's the decision to engage fully with what's in front of you, even if it's small. Especially if it's small. Because your life isn't made of big events. It's made of thousands of small ones, stacked silently, shaping you when you're not even watching. Focus isn't natural in a world built to distract you. Every app, every screen, every device is fighting for your gaze, and they don't just take your time. They take your energy, your peace, your ability to be still. So you have to fight back, not with aggression, but with intention. You take back your mind by protecting the first hour of your day, by choosing silence over scrolls, stillness over noise, clarity over chaos. That's not weakness, that's power, the ability to say, not now, to the things that don't matter so you can say, I'm here, to the things that do. Most people wait until they're overwhelmed to slow down. They only reflect when they're burned out. They only pause when they're forced to. But what if you didn't wait? What if you created pockets of peace before the chaos hit? What if you treated focus like a muscle, one that needs training, rest, and recovery? Because that's exactly what it is. You don't wake up one day and become focused. You build it in your habits, in your discipline, in your ability to do one thing fully, while everything else demands your attention. You can't control the world. You can't stop people from being loud or life from being hard. But you can choose where you place your attention. You can choose how you show up in each moment. That's not about being perfect. It's about being present. When you're eating, eat. When you're working, work. When you're with someone, be with them. Not halfway. Not while checking your phone fully, completely. Because that's how you create depth in a shallow world. That's how you find calm in the middle of the storm. Presence is your anchor. When everything spins, it holds you still, but you have to practice. Every time you resist the urge to escape into distraction, you strengthen it. Every time you breathe instead of reacting, you reinforce it. Every time you bring your attention back to this moment, even if it's a boring one, you reclaim a piece of your mind. And eventually, that calm becomes your default. That focus becomes your superpower, not because life is easier, but because you are steadier. The truth is, you won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel inspired. But you can always choose to be present. And in that presence you'll find clarity. You'll see what actually needs to be done. You'll hear what your mind has been trying to tell you. You'll feel emotions that were buried under distraction. And though it may feel uncomfortable at first, it's in that stillness that real growth happens. Not in the noise, but in the silence you create by choosing attention over impulse. You have to learn to pause, not just to rest, but to recenter, to ask yourself, where is my mind right now? And if the answer is scattered, anxious, or stuck in something that hasn't even happened yet, bring it back, not once, over and over. That's the practice, the art of returning, and the more you return to the now, the more you'll find that the now is enough. That you're not behind, that you're not broken, that you're just distracted. And underneath that distraction is a version of you that's strong, calm, and deeply focused. Don't wait until your life is perfect to be present. Be present in the mess, be focused in the noise. That's what makes it powerful, not that it's easy, but that you choose it anyway. When your mind says escape, you say engage. When your habits say scroll, you say breathe. It's not glamorous. It's not loud, but it changes everything, because the way you do the small things becomes the way you do everything. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't start with the world's noise. Start with your breath, with your thoughts, with a question, what matters right now. Then do that fully, quietly, with all your attention. And when your mind drifts, and it will, gently bring it back again and again. That's the practice. That's the discipline. And that's how you master your emotions in a distracted world. One breath, one moment, one decision at a time.